up before said it. I know the story, but I wanted to look it up so that I could share it with you. So, first of all, good morning. Look at this. The sun came out. The sun came out to bless us with its warmth and with its promise that we are indeed the beloved in whom life is well pleased. Amen. All right, thank you, thank you. So, what I wanted to look up and read, but of course it's much longer than I'm willing to read to you, so I'm going to have to summarize it. But that song, that wonderful song, Amazing Grace, which I have to tell you, until I was, well, I won't say how old, till recently in life, as lifetimes go, right? 10, maybe 15 years ago. I thought that was like a black spiritual, right? I thought it was a Negro spiritual, as they used to call them. And then I got the true story behind that song. And it was written by a man whose name is John Newton. And I often talk of those who left the body in tense, present tense terms, by a man by the name of John Newton. And I'm going to go ahead and give you my synopsis of it. But I want to tell you this piece that he started writing it in December of 1772. He was 47 years old. And this song, at the point of this writing, had been around for 349 years, right? So you can do the math and figure out how long it actually has been to now. Um, his personal conversion is how this article refers to it. And that conversion happened, it is rumored. Again, this is too long for me to go through and factualize, but you can on your own devices. It is rumored that he was the captain of a very profitable, I might add, ship that carried humans from Africa to the Americas as part of the human slave trade. And on one of those ventures, he was caught in a very, very bad storm. Now, there are 2 points to make about that part of his life and his life experience. That it was not unusual in those days to try to save the white people on the ship, to cast the cargo, in this case, human cargo, overboard. He did not elect to take that choice. Instead, he prayed. He prayed, and his prayer was he made a deal that I'm going to call a covenant, both because I like that word covenant and I like what the word covenant means. He made a covenant. He said, "Get me out of this. God, carry us through this, and I am out of this business." And so I think it is notable that that was in 1772. The slave trade in America did not end until well into the 1800s in terms of continuing to bring people, and slavery was not officially over until 1865. So again, I'm saying all of this to give us some idea about the man himself, and really what a courageous act that was at that time. And he went on to become not only a minister, yay, but an abolitionist. Yeah? So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for that song. Now we know what storms are for. Thank you. I like that. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And so, finally, on that note, I just also want to add, I want to make sure that we understand that grace is unearned favor, right? that grace is something we have just by virtue of being alive, of being born, that we live in a state of grace, which I have to say at a planetary level, we seem to take great advantage of, too much advantage of. We are often rolling around and living our lives like, we have no responsibilities, that we can do anything we want to do, that we can behave in any way that we want to behave. Well, yes, because we live in grace, and no, because it simply tain't so. It tain't so. The theme for this month, as has already been noted, is exploring the power of ancient wisdom. Exploring the power of ancient wisdom. My title is Them That Were Last Shall Be First. And if that sounds familiar to you, it is because it comes from a biblical verse. It comes from the parable of the workers in the vineyard, which is in Matthew 20th chapter, a number of verses, but this particular saying is verse 16. So the last will be first and the first last. For many are called, but few are chosen. So before I go any further, I have to do what I do, and I invite you to join me in just knowing that God, Oludumare, the good to which there is no opposite, is resonating in, through, and as each one of us as an absolute, perfect, impeccable, divine communication. And what I know is that that communication serves all of us. It serves us today and it serves us in our tomorrows. It serves us in our goings and in our comings and in our simply being both one with the divine as well as in recognition of that strand of DNA, one with each other. And so on that note, I simply say thank you, Mother, Father, God. And I release this word to the law and know that it is not only done, it is done exceedingly well. Ashe. Ashe, ashe, ashe. Okay, so about this parable of the workers in the vineyard. This is Jesus speaking in the New Testament, and for our new folk, this is not a Bible-based community. As I tell this Bible story, just kind of a FYI, we are what we call a new thought community, meaning that we've extrapolated what we feel is the best from all of the spiritual practices of the world. And I personally am a person who came up through the branch of New Thought that is called religious science. I actually sometimes call myself a born-again religious scientist because I grew up in a Baptist church, and so I bring that. But I needed that footnote before I get back to this parable. And part of what we do and part of what we understand is that these stories are meant to serve as metaphors, if you will, to serve as examples of how we can look at life and how we can take the wisdom from life. When we're talking about honoring our ancestors and looking at ancient wisdom, we're talking about just that thing, that wisdom that sometimes has been left in the past. That sometimes as we stand in this present place of all of our things, all of our technology, all of our ways of getting about and being in the world, we somehow have, in some important ways, I suggest, lost touch with the wisdom that has come across the ages. And are, when we are looking to reference that wisdom, it's a very short sighted look. And by that I mean that even in our classes and in the information that we present, we look to Plato, we look to Socrates, we look to the philosophers and the philosopher kings. And I love those guys. You know, I love those guys. Plato and the story about the people in the cave only seeing their shadow and not understanding what's going on in the world. Dynamite, excellent, wonderful, and there's so much more that predates all of those folks. So I'm today inviting us to go back a little bit further and look at and taste and see and allow ourselves to bring that forward. Back to the parable of the workers in the vineyard. So there was a question asked of Jesus about how do you get paid for your work? How should you be remunerated for the work that you do? And he told this story, and he said there was a farmer who owned a large piece of land who needed some workers. Now, in today's life experience, we might even say there was somebody in the valley in California, not far from right where we are, who needed some farm workers to help harvest the grapes. Grapes are good. Let's go north. Wine country to help harvest the grapes. So what the farmer did was he got some people who came early in the morning, right at sunrise. And he said to them, I will pay you a denarius, which was their currency at the time. I will pay you a denarius for your work over the course of this day. And the people agreed to it, and they did their work. Around about 10, 11 o'clock, almost midday, some more folks came who needed work. And the farmer again said, I will pay you a denarius. And this went on for a couple of intervals in the day, right on up till an hour before quitting time. And the people that came an hour before quitting time, he said, I will pay you a denarius for your work today. At the end of the workday, true to his word, he paid all of the people a denarius. Now, you know how those people that came at 6 o'clock in the morning, they were feeling some kind of way about that. Yes? They weren't happy at all. To which the farmer says, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what is yours and go your way. I wish to give to this last man the same as to you. Now you get the Rev Jacquelyn interpretation here. What I believe the farmer was saying was, first of all, a denarius is not a whole lot, but you can do a little something with it, right? You can take care of some of your basic needs. I would not give anybody less than that for working for me, right? Because I am an honorable person and I recognize, see that there is a level of need that people have and they are willing to work to have that need met. And I am blessed enough to be able to share what I have with those folks. That's my interpretation. I am suggesting that we take this story as being one of equity and not necessarily equality. And there's a difference between those two. Equal means the same. Equity means that let me explain it differently. Let me use the example that's always used. Imagine 3 kids wanting to see a baseball game that's going on the other side of a fence. Yes? You got that picture? The kids are 3 different heights, from short to medium to tall. Got that? The tall one can see over the fence. The middle one can see over the fence if they get on their tiptoes. The shortest one can't see over the fence at all, even on their tiptoes. In fact, the fence is probably 1.5 feet taller than the shortest person. If we give each one of those people a box that is 1 foot high, that's equality. Yeah? But that little one still can't see over the fence. Yeah? You got this picture? But if we say to the tallest one, you don't really need a box because you can see, but if you want one, we'll give you one, right? But, we don't want you to fall over the fence. Give a 1 foot to the one in the middle because that sets them just right to really get a view. They can lean on the fence a little bit, right? Be comfortable. And the little one, we might need to give them a 2-foot box so that they can see over the fence. That's equity. Ashe? Okay. This idea of them that were last shall be first is an idea whose time has come, I believe, and I'm inviting us to consider. And the form of that idea I am taking from a story that is told by Lynn Twist in her book, The Soul of Money, where she is talking about an Aboriginal tribe that lives in the, at that time, still lush and full forest, rainforest in Brazil. And they decide that it is time to send one of their young people forth into the city to get educated. And the chief says to this young man before they send him off, that he says to him, we are sending you to get this education because we understand that we are going to, in the not too distant future, need a bridge. And you are going to be that bridge because you carry our traditions, you carry our knowledge, you carry our understanding of how the world works. And in the not too distant future, that combined knowledge of how we do our lives here in this rainforest place, along with how they do life in the city, is going to be something that is needed for all of us collectively to go forward. What time is it? I think it's that time. I think we have arrived at that place. And so in our current arrival at that place, there's some invitations. There are invitations to look both at from whence we came as individuals in our personal, cultural lineage and history, as well as collectively. And so I'm going to invite us to take a quick look at 3 such cultures. The first one is Native American people, and I'm putting all the tribes in that. Native American people. We are on Ohlone land, at least I am in Oakland where I live. We are on Ohlone land. And in looking at Native American people, we get to recognize that they've been here on this continent for over 10,000 years. Again, that predates Plato and the boys. They might know a little something, something about how to do things. Maybe. Could be. Could be. Recently, I was introduced to something called the Native American 10 Commandments. And for time's sake, I'm not going to read all of them, but I am going to read the highlights because, again, you can go look it up. So number 1 is the earth is our mother. Care for her. Ancient wisdom. Honor all your relations. All life is sacred. Treat all things with respect. Take from the earth what you need and nothing more. Give constant thanks to the Great Spirit for each new day. The last one, the 10th one. Enjoy life's journey, but leave no tracks. And just again, on a personal note, I just have to tell you, as I was typing that, as I'm reading that, as I see it, as I hear it, there's a little voice in my head, and I'm sharing this with you because I know you got a voice too. There's a little voice in my head that says, when are you going to get off those plastic bottles? That says, yeah, you got to get your water every day. You got to get your 11 glasses or blah, blah, blah. There we go. And I invite us all to just give a quick thought. What can I do? What can I do in my life that indicates that I'm enjoying life's journey, but I will leave no tracks? We're now going to go to Australia, which is a magnificent place. If you've not been there, go. It is just a wonderful, wonderful place. It too has an Aboriginal people that we in fact call Aborigines. They don't call themselves Aborigines. They have tribes and tribal names and all that sort of thing. These people are estimated to have lived in that area. I'm going to repeat this number and invite me and us to even deeper dive into research, but have lived on this continent upwards of 60,000 years, is what current research reveals. I bring these Aboriginal people because last year, you may recall, there were some serious fires going on in Australia. And there was repeated efforts to put these fires out, and it seemed like for all of our modern tools, all of our big fire trucks, all of our helicopters that can drop water, all of the things that we have, it wasn't working. Finally, somebody, I'm going to say some fire chief because I like fire chiefs, I used to work with them. Some fire chief said, wait, there are these people that have been living here. He might not have said for over 60,000 years, but he more than likely came to a realization that there's some people that have been living here that have been dealing with fires for a long time. Why don't we ask them what they do? Why don't we consult with them? And also, this is their land where they currently live. So they have a vested interest. They consulted the local tribal people who said do A, B, and C. I don't know what that A, B, and C was, but I want to share with you that there's a gentleman whose name is Nelson, who is one of the indigenous people of the area where some of these fires have taken place. And he leads a small team of Aboriginal park rangers in northern Victoria, whose aim is to reintroduce what he describes as cultural burning, traditional techniques using fire to manage the landscape. He and his team create a mosaic pattern on the ground and will not set fire to every piece of leaf litter, choosing which plants to burn and giving organisms and animals the chance to escape or find shelter. While it is acknowledged that the impacts of climate change and the continuing drought have contributed to those fires, there is a hope that the wider adoption of cultural burns will reduce the potential for such large scale fires in the future. What are we talking about? We're talking about using ancient wisdom. We're talking about going to the keepers. May not have written it down in the King's English, right? Because to a large extent, much of what we study, much of what we learn, much of what we are exposed to, aside from being a spin, and I think we know what a spin is, aside from being a spin, is based on what was written down, what was recorded in written history. I'm going to wrap up with the 16 principles of Ifa, which is an African spiritual practice. And again, because it's 16 of them, I'm not going to read all of them out loud, but I am going to hit some highlights. Now, these principles have been around for at least 7,000 years. I always like to pause on these big numbers because it's just amazing to me. The very first principle of Ifa is, this is a benevolent universe. This is a benevolent universe. There is a single creative force. This is number 3, and they call that force Oludumare. And what I find interesting about the description of that God name, Oludumare, that in the envisioning of that is that Oludumare is both genderless and all genders. It is your birthright to be joyful, successful, and loved. You are part of the universe in a literal, not figurative way. Now, even back when I was in school, they were teaching that every element that exists on the planet exists even in some microscopic way within this thing that we call a human body. Anybody ever heard that before? You are a part of the universe in a literal, not figurative way. That was 7. I've got to do 8 and 9. 8 is character determines outcome. And 9 is supremacy is evil. Number 12, which I think highlights this idea of recognizing that there is no supremacy in gender. There can be no discrimination. And the writing, the comments that follow that one are, a person who does not appreciate the value of a fellow human being, who does not recognize the importance of another human being, a person who is not well learned, is the one who will say a woman does not amount to anything in life. I said, well, all righty then. Diversity is the hallmark of Oludumare's creation. The last one, balance, growth, and wisdom are your goals. Balance, growth, and wisdom are your goals. So these 16 truths of Ifa were adopted from a particular community, the Ifa Foundation of North America. You will find slightly different verses, but nothing that will contradict anything that I've read or said here today. I want to close with a quote, actually two quotes from one of my favorite people, Thich Nhat Hanh. And Thich Nhat Hanh was 92, I want to say, when he made his transition last year. And I was looking at a video of him, and this man literally, in addition to being a glow, looked like he was maybe in his 60s, maybe late 50s, 60s, and he was 92. Why do I mention that? Because we are all interested in longevity. And one of the keys to that is do the right thing. Is do the right thing. He says, through my love for you, I want to express my love for the whole cosmos, the whole of humanity and all beings. By living with you, I want to learn to love everyone and all space and all species. If I succeed in loving you, I will be able to love everyone and all species on earth. This is the real message of love. You must love in such a way that the person you love feels free. Ashe, amen, amen, aho, and so it is.